This bro needs a haircut. So, in Everyday Feminism, which is a wonderful depot of fabulous ideas and ideations, there's this article published on March 15th, 2015 by Robot Hugs, titled, "Why Using the Dictionary Definition of Racism Just Doesn't Work." We all need to pause and read this comic before using the dictionary definition of racism in an argument. While dictionaries are supposed to be authorities on how we speak, they reflect the opinions of some people while excluding many more. Check out this comic to find out about the biased history of the dictionary and learn a more useful approach to language. With love, the editors of Everyday Feminism. Now, as you might suppose, this webcomic is supposing to be an authority on how we speak, and it reflects the opinion of some people while excluding many more. But don't let that dissuade you. Let's look at the author bio. Kay is a Canadian, non-binary, genderqueer, people queer. It's a new one to me. Mentally ill, critical feminist robot. They have a background in linguistics, information, privacy, and categorization. That's why they have so many categories. And human-centric design, to the exclusion of other entities. They are the artist and writer of Robot Hugs, a twice-weekly webcomic about, among other things, gender identity, feminism, mental health, and cats. So we have at least something in common. In their spare time, they provide peer education and workshops on negotiation, consent, and identity. In their spare time, their hobbies include worrying about things they can't control and conniving. Check out their comics here. All right, so let's read this comment. Definition. Well, the dictionary definition of racism is... Hold on. I'm going to have to pause here for a second. I think you're trying to make a dictionary definition about a socially complex word into an argument. And it's not going to work the way you think it will. What's it to you? Linguist and information professional, so they know something. They have authority. They have more authority than the dictionary. If the dictionary definition of linguist and information professional is to be adhered to. This is a large part of my academic research and my current career. Appeal to authority. I know a lot about this stuff, and it's very important to me. Appeal to personal importance authority. Oh, look, it's like the Twin Towers here. Well, just one tower. And here's the little straw man that's going to melt the steel beams. Dictionaries are these man-made documents. Okay, they're man-made documents that are supposed to somehow be an authority on how we speak and write. But that is practically impossible. Let me clue you in on something, little cartoon guy. You are a man-made icon that is supposing to somehow be an authority on this. No document could possibly capture the variations and nuances of language. That's true. That's true. No document can capture that. People seem to view dictionaries as being objective, but I see them as oppressive. Like they don't have a stake in what they're describing, but that isn't the case. Dictionaries express a point of view, an opinion, nothing more. Is that what you're doing? Expressing an opinion? The dictionaries don't express an opinion, nothing more. If more than one person agrees with the dictionary, it's no longer an opinion. It's kind of like a binding contract. So in a certain way, a contract is just an opinion. It's just a man-made document that's supposed to have authority over something. So this statement of opinion is another definition, and they are trying to undermine the authority of the dictionary by supplanting it with their own authority. So what gives them more authority than anybody else? Let's see. People insist on pointing to dictionary definitions in arguments, but they don't consider whose opinion they're pointing to. Well, this is the thing. This is the cool thing about higher level arguments. If you do it right, you go in and you predefine your terms. Say, this is what I am talking about, and I'm going to restrain the use of the word that I use it in this context to these terms. This is what this term means. The dictionary doesn't necessarily need to be an authority for that. If you go into an argument and just lay it out right up front, what you mean by these different words, many words, especially in higher order discourse, don't adhere to the simplistic dictionary definition. And the great thing about the internet is that we have the ability to modify definitions, but the trick is being clear when you are speaking what you mean. The dictionary is one way to standardize or to form some sort of norms for communication across distances, across different experiences, right? And those norms might be in need of revision depending on the context, but you're free to revise that as long as you're clear. But if you use the maneuver of supplanting your authority for the dictionary authority and then use that to win the argument, it's not done in good faith, I don't think. But let's see whose nasty opinion made the dictionary. Dictionaries as books describing language are historically prescriptive. That means they were meant to tell people how they should speak. Kind of like what they're doing right now, telling me how to treat the dictionary. This comic is prescriptive in and of itself. The movement to begin writing dictionaries from a descriptivist point of view, that means recording how people actually speak language behavior, was controversial and highly contentious. Should I look up any of these words? Where should I go to look up these words? Does this person have a dictionary? Are they willing to go through all the work of defining every single one of their terms before advancing to the next statement? You see, they basically want a Tower of Babel where everybody's just speaking their own language. And that tower cannot survive without a foundation, rooted in something. Even if it's a pretended objectivity, it has to be rooted in something. So the real question is, what is the closest form of objectivity that we can all agree on? What are the values that can house the tallest building? That's the question for me. Quote, "We have seen the propped wide open in enthusiastic hospitality to miscellaneous corruptions and confusions. In fine, the anxiously awaited work that was to have crowned cisatlantic linguistic scholarship with a particular glory turns out to be a scandal and a disaster." January 1962 Atlantic Monthly, somewhat hyperbolic review of Webster's Third Dictionary, a pointedly descriptivist body of work. All right, and then here's this, there's three voices now. "More like dictionary, am I right?" I want to punch that person using that word. Not dictionary, but am I right? "How crass, an offensive and cultured colophony of degenerate speech." "Gasp, a neologism and an elision in suti. I must record and preserve this precious language butterfly." The prescriptivist versus descriptivist divide continues to this day. And most modern dictionaries for mass audiences try to straddle the two camps. The writers and editors of popular and academic dictionaries have been overwhelmingly, here's the straw man, it's going to melt all the steel beams, white, academic, straight men. And that has influenced the kind of language they have allowed in their dictionaries and how that language is described. You know, France has a panel that accepts what words can and cannot be used. I find that a little authoritarian. So I'm kind of a libertarian when it comes to speech, but at the same time, I need to respect the speech patterns of others if I want to be a communicator, a communicator. Precious language butterfly. Hey, we did our best. It was mostly solid work. Okay, this is the white men piping in. Herbert Coleridge, Noah Webster, Frederick, James Furnival. And they're like, you did okay. Frickin' white males. You did all right. You did serviceable. You got the tower this far, but we need to knock you out of our foundations so we can go even higher in our babbly reaches. So the language in dictionaries tends to reflect the opinions of white, straight, academic men on what is acceptable English language, including the exclusion or denigration of different dialects and usages. For example, the struggle of the recognition of the grammatical legitimacy of African American vernacular English has been hampered by a historical resistance by English dictionaries to include AAVE as acceptable usage. So who should be writing this dictionary on African American vernacular English? It seems like the underpinning is these other dictionary companies should embark on that project as well. Like there's a finite number of resources for this. Who's going to do all this work? I'm not adverse at all to as many dictionaries and as many languages as possible. It's awesome. But languages belong to communities, and communities should take responsibility, somewhat at least, of investigating and shoring up their own dictionary. But as soon as they start doing that, they're going to be embarking on a project of calcification of their language. And certain cultures are less amenable to calcification. Certain cultures are more open, let's say, to invention and twisting language, and that's what I love to do. But, you know, we still have to respect that there are going to be a lot of people coming into your comment field saying, that's not how you say that. That's not how you say that. Right? And I appreciate those people too. So I can learn to violate things consciously instead of unconsciously. It's always better to be a conscious violator than an unconscious violator, because when you get in trouble, you can totally own it. And likewise, when you make a cool discovery or twisted little butterfly of linguisticism, then you can take ownership of that too. The comic says, I think you meant to say, she is here, not she be here. No, I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. I be meaning what I saying. Now, I could get in trouble for that. Says white men. This bias within dictionaries continues to this day. While online dictionaries are more fluid and can more easily include changes and variations in language, dictionaries in general are still fairly static. Now, do they have a problem with category itself? Or who makes the category or the shape of the category? Or do they want to be able to like dough their own category together? The shape of laundry. And I'm talking floor laundry, not the folded stuff. Which would probably be called clothes, right? It's not laundry if it's folded. I don't know. Am I making that up? And the authorities in charge of administering and editing dictionaries are still almost always white academics. Damn them. Damn them. Uh-oh. Even though many modern dictionaries are trying to capture different ways of speaking, new terms, and shifting definitions, they are still dragging behind them the weight of proper usage and academic prescriptivism. Proper speech. Yeah, that hobbles me too. I'm better than this. Yeah, but this is the thing. You can't put something together without a sense of propriety. And actually, this is all woven out of propriety. It's a propriety that purports to be against propriety, but it's still a propriety that's purporting to be against propriety. It's just this constant confiscation. It's constant confiscation of having cake and eating it too and puking it on the table and calling it cake when it's not really cake anymore. It's half-digested sugar flour mush with some cool caramel coloring, or red number 5 if you're lucky. Your mom went the expensive route with the food dyes. I'm not saying that dictionaries are useless. They're really useful when I want to look up how to spell something or the definition of an obscure word, so they still need a normativity or standard or the information, or when points in Scrabble. Like, it's only good when it satisfies my need for correctness, but not when somebody else is trying to correct me. It's only good for shoring up my own definitions of the world, but where it doesn't fit with my own definition of the world, it needs to be burnt. But the thing is just go ahead and change the definition. Just be clear. With racism, with using the term racism, you have to be very specific with that by racism, I mean this systemic thing. I don't mean this individual act. I mean this systemic structural oppression, racism thing. And when you do that, you need to let go of the negative connotations of racism and not use it as a moral argument. But the thing is that they want to be able to use racism, the punch of racism, while being able to manufacture this new definition so that they can categorize people into not just the specific dictionary definition, but the cultural value of racism, right? So they still want to maintain the cultural value while being able to morph that value into a new form, which I don't think you should do. I think it's improper. Haha! See, Norties is totally a word. Fine. What I am saying is that when you look through a dictionary, especially a general use dictionary, you have to remember that it is not an objective document. This is bolded. I don't know how I'm going to do Spiky the Worm voice and bold it at the same time. It is a document with a history and a bias that is rooted in privilege, exclusion, elitism, and gatekeeping. That is an incredibly powerful statement, and I'm going to read that again in normal voice so we can get through it. It is a document with a history and a bias that is rooted in privilege, exclusion, elitism, and gatekeeping. Yes, it was discretionarily put together so that it could hold together based on this thing called definition. Definition needs authority. It needs authorship. It needs to be rooted in exclusion. This is right, that's wrong. Elitism, this is better than that. Gatekeeping, these ones don't get in because they don't meet our criteria. And privilege. Privilege. That's really good. This is why dictionary definitions are a particularly poor resource when trying to win arguments on topics like racism and other kinds of social discrimination. Listen, if you want racism to mean something other than what racism in the dictionary means, why not use a different word? I already said, because the cultural impact, the cultural value, the ability to win an argument because of the capacity of the label of racism to erase the other's opinion. The language describing systemic institutions of oppression, like racism, ableism, and transmisogyny, is of more value when it is interpreted and defined by the groups it affects, not the groups in power. That is gatekeeping. That is privileging. That is elitism. And that is, what is the other one? That's exclusion. They just practice the exact same thing that they said that the dictionary is founded on. Dictionaries often fail to capture how certain languages and terms have been used or excluded in ways that perpetuate oppression and violence against groups of people. I was mocking the conflation of verbality with vilocity. That's not objectivity, that's erasure. You're trying to erase other terms, cover them up, or just ignore them. This isn't objectivity either. This is just ignorature. Ignorature? Ignorance. That's the proper term, isn't it? Language is spoken and signed and sung and yelled and whispered and typed. It's invented and created and transformed and disposed. Language doesn't live anywhere, certainly not in one book. We can get into that when I get deeper into linguistics. I mean, quoting a book that is grounded in a history of a bunch of white men deciding what is appropriate, correct, what's true, and what isn't, that feels about as convincing as, well, the Bible says, oh, please. Now, the problem with this whole thing, it's like, okay, so white men are the problem, right? Or implicitly, white men have made these decisions. Now, this other group somehow is qualified to make these decisions better based on their category. Is there another way of valuing and gatekeeping and finding privilege that isn't rooted in category? Is there? That's the great question of the day, and we each have to make up our mind about that. But I think that whatever works the best is going to transcend the mere cardboard box that came up with it. Both the good and the bad. Both the good and the bad.